Before we start today's episode, we've got a little quick announcement that we'd like to talk to you all about, and that is the fact that our live show, the Imperfects Live on Stage, or Live on Stage, however you want to pronounce it, is continuing in new cities next year.
In 2024, the show must go on.
It must.
It must. It simply must.
It must.
And it will go ahead in the following places. Auckland.
That's New Zealand.
Whoa,
That's overseas.
That's another country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jeez. Ooh. Do we even have people? We must have enough people listening in New Zealand.
We don't decide where we go. The numbers in the different, we just go where the numbers are, the listeners are.
Yeah.
And we have access to that, obviously.
Oh, we're completely data driven.
Yes.
We have no
Everything
opinion.
we do on this show is
It's completely algorithm decided.
I'm saying this for people in Tassie going, why are you going? Anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
good.
Auckland, Brisbane, Gold Coast, Perth,
Newcastle.
and Melbourne.
Wow, what a reveal. So tense. It's like the Brownlow votes. Jeez.
I wasn't trying to be suspenseful. I was trying to remember. That's what I was doing
It sounded suspenseful, but yeah, for good reason. You know, I think I'm excited to go to Gold Coast, Newcastle. We've never been there. Auckland. I'm excited to go to this place I've never been before.
I just want to talk about Tassie because I love Tassie so much.
Yeah.
We only have about 7 listeners in Tassie though.
Yeah, you have to tell your friends. You have to get the listen account up.
Yeah, so and those 7 people always DM me. So I just
Right.
I'm so sorry, those 7 people.
Well, so if you want to come see us again, that would be incredible. But just a heads up, it is relatively the same show, although there'll be new guests, a few new bits.
It's about 30% different.
That's true.
Yeah.
30% different.
So if you like seeing 30% stuff that's new,
Yeah.
70%.
Right.
Oh, no, 30. Yeah.
then you should come along.
But of course, if you haven't seen the show, then it's 100% new. It's 100% new stuff. You will be shocked with the newness of what you're looking at.
You won't actually believe it.
How new it is.
Yeah, you'll be like, I've never seen this before. That's what you'll be saying. These are the sort of things you'll be saying. You'll be sitting in your chair going, oh my God, you'll be like nudging the person next to you, I've never seen this before. And they'll go, I've seen 70% of it. But a lot of you will say 100%. So look.
So for those who haven't seen it, guaranteed 100% new.
Exactly. Tickets at livenation.com.au. They are on sale now. We would love to see you there.
My name's Hugh. I'm a co-host on The Imperfects. I'm the son of Sri Lankan and English immigrants, and I call Australia home. We at The Imperfects acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation as the traditional owners of the land on which this podcast is recorded, and we extend our respects to the elders past and present. I've spent much of the last decade travelling around this country sharing stories. In doing so, I acknowledge and pay homage to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's rich history of storytelling. I also acknowledge that whenever I talk about or practice resilience, there is no greater example than the one set by the world's oldest living culture.
Hello, bangers and mash. Welcome to the Academy of Imperfection, where experts in their field share their wisdom on the subject of imperfection. Today, our guest lecturer is Australian of the Year and body image campaigner Taryn Brumfitt.
Yeah, I mean, we know in Australia that 77% of our young people are in body image distress. And we know of those people that they are 24 times more likely to be depressed or have anxiety. So that's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
77% and 24 times more likely.
So pop off your petticoats, pull up a pint, and join students Hugh, Ryan, and Josh with Taryn Brumfitt in the Academy of Imperfection.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to one of our favourite formats.
Yeah, it's in our top 4, that's
It's
for sure.
definitely the top 4. We are back in the Academy of Imperfection, and we are joined by, this is a really exciting one for us. We're joined by Taryn Brumfitt. Now, in fact, this is not me being lazy with your bio, I promise, but if someone asks you, what do you do, what do you say?
I say I'm a photographer.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Just because it's easy.
Yeah.
Are you a photographer?
I was, yeah.
Oh, okay.
But now, I guess because it's like to actually explain everything that you do, it's really going to outshine anyone that's asking. So it's
And it would take a while as well.
It
would just take a long time.
I guess it's because I do a few different things.
You do so many things. You do so many things, and you've been recognised. Well, you are the current Australian of the Year. which I feel like just we've chatted for the last 15 minutes, I feel like it's a title that doesn't sit overly comfortably with you, or you don't feel like it's not who you are. It's like, I don't know, you're quick to sort of dismiss it and talk about the work you do as opposed to that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's before 25 January, I was doing the work that I'm doing, and then next year I'll be doing the work that I'm doing. It's opened up a lot of doors this year. That's been super helpful, but it's actually just not about me. It's about other people.
Yeah. So,
well, this is about you now.
I know.
The bio.
This is why I'm like terrified.
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, do you want to keep going?
Well, I guess you've done so much. I mean, your purpose really is about it's all around body image. That's kind of the overarching theme to your work. But in that, you have created, you're a best-selling author, you've created this extraordinary documentary, or two documentaries, which have been viewed by, I think it's over 40 million people. For those of you who can't see Taryn, which is everyone right now, she did a face saying, I got no idea. But I do have an idea. So it's 40 million people have viewed either Embrace or Embrace Kids. You have done so much incredible work. It is such a privilege for us to have you in the Academy with us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm slightly nervous because there's three of you and I feel like I'm in a job interview. So I know, I don't know what to do about this.
You're the Australian of the Year here, so...
Right, yeah. Tell me.
Yeah. We are nervous. You're interviewing us.
Every now and again, we interview someone who I genuinely am worried will take my job because they're going to be so impressive with what they talk about. This could be the one. So Embrace, your doco, which is available on, I think it's almost available on every streaming service. You can really just get it anywhere.
I didn't know you could have things on a whole variety of...
It's rare, I think. Anyway, you can watch it anywhere. It is, I mean, it's been out for a few years now. It's not brand new, but for a lot of people it will be new, like if you haven't seen it, and I certainly hadn't seen it. And I watched it in knowing that you were coming in here, and I was really genuinely just blown away. This is a very obvious thing to say, but and kind of like, not necessarily a shameful thing to say, but because of all the input we get from the world, you know, we're sort of programmed, and this is sort of why you do the work that you do, but we're programmed to go like, that's a good body, that's a bad body. That's sort of like how we're just programmed, and not to an extent necessarily where we're like judging people, but it's like this unconscious thing where it's like, that's a body you want to have and that's a body you don't want to have. And what was so powerful about watching your doco is it's an incredibly eloquently and also funny and watchable way of reminding you that it does not matter what your body is. And we know that intellectually. You know, most of us are like, yeah, of course it doesn't matter. But to actually truly believe it, particularly if you have issues with your own body, to truly believe that is really, really hard, I think. And watching your doco Embrace, just to actually, it's just wild because I realized that just to actually see so many different bodies is quite rare. And that's what was really kind of cool about it as well.
Yeah, I mean, when you say that about seeing so many different bodies, the first thing I think of in that film is what we called in production the wall of vulva. Which is a series of photographs that were taken, and I'm reminded of the 79-year-old woman who came up to me after she watched the film and said to me, she was in tears. So the first thing I thought she was going to say is her grandchild has an eating disorder. It was the natural assumption in my head, but she said, I saw myself in those photos, and for the first time in my life, I feel normal.
Gosh,
and I think 79 years of feeling shame and that there's something wrong with her, just that opportunity for her to, for all of us to sort of see the beautiful range and all the different shapes and sizes of our bodies and feel okay. I think that's kind of the missed opportunity in life, is that we spend so much time thinking that something's wrong with our bodies. But if you look at young kids, they see water and a sprinkler and they're like nudie running directly through it. They hear music, they dance, they don't wait for the first person to dance because orkies, they just do it. They're so in their bodies. And in particular, when I'm in the US, I always get the question, you know, on the doctors or wherever it is, like, don't you feel overwhelmed at creating a global movement of change? And I'm like, no, because we weren't born into the world hating our bodies. It's just something the world has taught us. So as soon as we all en masse realise that it's not meant to be this way, then we can all change. And we don't all have to love our bodies. We could just like it, be okay with it, feel neutral about it. But it's a choice that we make. And I think what's happening is people are going, oh, I get to decide how I feel about my body. The world can sort of tell us to do all these things and be different and be wider and smoother and thinner, or whatever it is. But we don't have to engage with that. And I guess that's what I'm so excited about, is the more conversations I have, the more people are going, oh, cool, this is up to me.
There is a choice.
There is a choice.
Because that other voice, the bad voice that we've been getting all our lives, it's such a loud voice and we hear it everywhere. And it's just, unfortunately, the positive voice we don't hear enough of, and it's just why you're out doing 80 talks a week probably, so the voice is louder.
So can I take you back to 2013? For those people who don't know about the journey you've been on, it started for you this public journey for you started in 2013 with the photo that you posted online. Can you tell us about that and then what happened subsequently?
Yeah, so those before and after photographs where there's a woman or a man before and they're in a larger body, and sometimes they're holding a newspaper to be like, this is the date. And then they lose weight and they're in a smaller body and they're saying, and now I'm happy. Well, I just wanted to call BS on it, and I did a bodybuilding competition it was a social experiment to discover how I would feel after years of hating my body. Would it change me to have the perfect body? And getting up there on stage, all I could think is, for me to have this body for the rest of my life, it's just not sustainable. Like, it takes too much time and obsession and calorie counting and weighing myself and moving my body for punishment and not pleasure. And I can't do this, and I'm not going to do this. So the before photo is me on stage in that kind of stereotypical bikini body.
In competition.
Yep. And then after is as I am now. Look, and I was nude in the after. You couldn't see anything, but you could certainly see me in a larger body with some cellulite and some rolls. And when that photograph went really viral, I had a Russian film crew come to my house for 3 days, and it made the Qantas in-flight news. And I'd never, yeah, right?
The Qantas in-flight news. That's a great achievement.
I should put that on LinkedIn. I was a photographer. I had 3 young children at the time, and I had no interest in having a public profile. I posted those photos because I thought it could help some people, and I didn't really think beyond. And then it was seen, by 100 million people in a few weeks. It was just something else. And so what people didn't see was there was a media frenzy, and then there was me behind closed doors trying to get back to the 7,000 emails and messages that people had sent me from all around the world. And some of those stories really propelled the next decisions that I made. I remember one woman, she was 26 and she had 2 young children, and she said, I'm in a much larger body and people think I'm a fat, lazy pig. What people don't know is that I was sexually abused as a child, and every day I'm trying to keep my head above water and survive for my 2 kids. P.S. I've never shared this with anyone, ever. So here I am in Australia, in Adelaide, getting these messages, and I knew I needed to do something with it. And I guess that's what sort of started the whole body image movement. And there was never a plan. It was just, there's a need. How do we help people? And I guess, it was like, I'll write a book. I guess that's the easiest way to get messages out. And I asked Ricky Lake to write the foreword, and right? Ricky Lake.
Yeah,
go, Ricky.
I can't. When she popped up in the doc, I was like, Ricky Lake.
Yeah. Where has she been? We love her, right?
I love Ricky Lake.
The problem for me now is I spend so much time with young people that they don't know who Ricky Lake is. And it's like, go, Ricky. Go. But we did this book, and then I was just like, this is not the solution. It needs something more. And I thought, I enjoy telling stories, and I'm a photographer. I'll just make a film. How hard could that be?
Was it hard?
It tried to take my soul. It's of course, it's super hard. But also, first-time filmmaker, no one was going to take a punt on me. So I had to turn to Kickstarter to raise the funds. So set out to raise $200,000, and it was a 60-day campaign, and hit that on day 12, and went on to raise $331,000. So it was an extraordinary campaign, and I guess it was, again, all the decisions that I've made, they've never been about me. I've been a bit like bumbling along going, I'm going to do this, and then something, it feels like, it sounds a bit woo-woo, but it feels a bit magical sometimes. And I think that's what happens in life when it's not about you and it's about helping others and it's doing good in the world. There's sort of a level of support that we can't see or feel or even make sense.
But I'm fascinated by the moment when you choose to put that before and after photo out there, because at that point there's no thought, like you being on this podcast and like doing talks around the world, it makes sense now with what's happened because you've done all this incredible work. But back then, to make the decision to put that photo out, considering, as you said, you hated your body, someone who had this bad relationship with your body, to put a photo like that out, how do you get the courage to do that? Like put it out publicly to your friends and knowing everyone's going to see it.
Yeah, I mean, I think for courage to be present, there needs to be fear. And at that stage when I shared that, I felt really good in my body. And I'd been on that journey of hating my body and learning to embrace it. And I felt really comfortable and I thought it could help other people. So.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Were you, like, as you said, it went viral and the absolute magnitude of emails that you were getting, the way that this blew up, it must have been somewhat surprising, but you're inspiring, but it's also, I find it kind of heartbreaking that there's such a need, that people felt such a need and so many people are screaming out to talk about this. Like it's to think of the collective pain and self-loathing there. Did that surprise you?
Yeah, it does. And it still does. But I also see the opportunity in that collective pain because I think it's possible to embrace your body. And if we can get, people around the world learning the embrace philosophies and feeling good and moving their body and nourishing it and respecting it and enjoying it, then I'm really curious to see what happens to the planet and the world when we start taking all of that energy that's wasted and putting it towards issues that really matter. And it's not the size of our bum. It's not our bodies that are the problem. So I think, I see so much opportunity.
Yeah, beautifully said.
A moment that I found really heartbreaking in the documentary, but I guess also very revealing about our collective state of mind, is when you actually ask women what they thought of their body. And it started off with, I don't like this or I don't like that, but then it became really heartbreaking stuff like disgusted and I hate my body. And I was thinking, my first thing was small sample size, but I thought if you just kept going, I don't know many people who would say, and I'm including, like, I do a lot of running and train with a lot of Olympic athletes. I'll do it again. I train with a lot of athletes. Some of them
keeping that in.
I train with a lot of elite athletes, some of them Olympians. I reckon if you ask them, do you like your body? I reckon that you would get similar responses like, I don't like this isn't good, I'm disgusted in this. I think it's such a universal thing to not like the body that you have regardless of what it looks like. I don't think the actual body is, it's our headspace, not our actual body that actually dictates how we feel about our body. That must have been a confronting thing to, I'm just thinking about sitting through the editing process and hearing all these people talk about how they feel about their body. I guess what I wanted to say was I feel like this was about women. I have no doubt it's exactly the same. I don't want to make this about men, but I feel like it would be the same for men. I really feel that quite strongly.
100%. I mean, what you saw in Embrace, the documentary, is all of the women that I interviewed. But at the same time, I was out on the streets. I was asking men the same question back then. So I've been sort of collecting the research and the data very anecdotally for the last 10 years. And it's just that it's not talked about. So there's as much trauma about bodies for men as there is for women, but it's not really a subject that we talk about very often, or I should say you guys talk about very often. You guys do. I know that because I've heard you open up with vulnerabilities about it. But for a lot of men, it's like, especially in Australia, no, she'll be right. Like, goes all right. I've got a bit of there's a layer of when I've asked men, it's only taken a pause of, that uncomfortable pause to allow
After the
them
joke.
to,
Yeah.
right, to after the joke,
Yeah.
to get exactly quite quickly to actually what's sitting beyond that. And I think so often in conversations and banter that we don't allow the space to hear that.
Yeah. Well, in the doco, it's interesting you should bring that up, because the thing that made me cry watching it was hearing the women say the things they liked about their bodies at the end, because I had this realization when watching it that I don't think I've said anything good about my body since before puberty, and I've had this internal dialogue of all the negative things, and I think I'd sort of told myself, well, I'd probably say both. But then when I heard that, I was like, I've never heard other people do that, but I've never done that myself, not even alone appreciated anything about my body since. And I realised it was before puberty that I was comfortable when I was a kid. Since then, so that's pretty early for me. It was about grade 6. I don't think I've thought a positive thing really. And to think that I've sat in that air for 26 years is pretty heartbreaking, and I'm clearly not alone. Clearly, many people feel the same thing, and it just really struck me as pretty tragic.
Yeah, I think it is.
Yeah,
we're not meant to be at war with our body.
no,
And that's the dialogue that so many people are having every day about their bodies. And what does that do for us? Like, it sidelines us. I'm pretty certain. I'm not going to go swimming. I'm not going to do the thing. I don't want other people to see me. There's the detrimental impact of us not feeling good about our bodies affects relationships, not just the one we have with ourselves, but others. It impacts our young people because they see us being uncomfortable in our bodies or saying negative things. And then they think, it just normalises that. It's like, that's what it means. Or we talk about weight. That's the one that drives me bonkers the most. It's like, can we just stop talking about people's weight? Weight loss, weight gain, let's never talk about it ever again because it's actually irrelevant. And it's what I love about working with young people. It's just saying the least interesting thing about you is the way you look. Like the least. Like, I want to know who you are and what you're doing and what adventures you're going on, what footy team you're barrack for, and like what lights you up. That's really interesting, not this.
So true, yeah.
So I think we all know individually ourselves the issues that this causes for us on a personal level when we're talking about body image, but collectively, I mean, how big a problem is this?
Yeah, I mean, we know in Australia that 77% of our young people are in body image distress, and we know of those people that they are 24 times more likely to be depressed or have anxiety. So that's pretty terrifying.
Yeah.
77% and 24 times more likely.
And when you say distress, what does that mean? Like, what does that look like?
Body dissatisfaction,
Right,
wanting
on
to
like a
change
daily
their body.
basis?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for young boys, it might be starting protein powders because what they've seen reflected back in movies is big, strong men that they want to be like that. Often for young girls, it's about weighing less. Recently I heard young girls talking about preventative Botox because even now, so not even getting wrinkles before they come. So there's just so there's big statistics, but there's equally these really alarming conversations that have been had about bodies, appearance, and how people feel about their bodies.
Well, that was like so powerful in the doco when it's sort of the way that part of the story starting is after you have your children and you have a body that you're dissatisfied with, and your first thought is, I'll have surgery. I'll have surgery, I'll fix it. I'll get back to my pre-baby body. And then the reason you decide against it is because it's going to be a bad example to set for your daughter. And I think that is, on the flip side of that, you're talking about preventative Botox. There's obviously a lot of women getting work done. It's become more and more normal, and everyone has their reasons for it. And I don't say it to judge people, but of course that's going to have an effect on their kids when their kids see that as a very normal thing and go, oh, well, that's a normal thing. So then it doesn't become like, I feel like when we were growing up, back in those days, the idea of having any sort of cosmetic surgery is a huge call, and only like actors and actresses would do it because they have to get roles. But now we're way past that, and it's becoming more normal. So that has changed quite significantly.
Yeah, it has. I mean, having major surgery is treated like, I don't know, getting a filling. It has become normalised and, quite terrifying. In particular, that our young people just think like that's just what we do. It's just the natural progression of their choices that they make. So I never like to cast any judgment around this. I mean, I often joke with audiences that, if you've just had your Botox done, I don't even care because your body, your rules, my body, my rules. But could we make informed decisions about what we do with our body? And is there more possibility that we could be comfortable in the skin that we're in as opposed to cutting it and injecting it and filling it and all the things?
Yeah. I was able to witness some, like kind of this tragic thing kind of happening literally in front of me. So we all know like social media is kind of horrific for this. It's like the pressure it puts on particularly young people, but all people on like how they look. But I was on a plane. It was a long flight. It was from Dubai to Melbourne. And in the row in front of me was a young couple, and I was in the middle seat of the three and she was in the left-hand side, so I could see through the crack and see like what she's looking at on her phone, when I looked up. And for the whole flight, her boyfriend was next to her and she had her phone angled away from him so he couldn't really see. But the whole flight, she was editing a photo of her from the trip that she'd just been on with her and her friend, and the Facetune app, and was adjusting everything about her body, like every single thing. And it was just felt like I'd never seen it. I knew it happened, but I'd never actually seen it happening unironically. Like never seen it happen like for real. And it was so shocking. I know it's very common now, but it was so shocking to me to see this happen. And the even more shocking thing, which was even like more devastating, was it was a photo of her with her friend, and she didn't edit her friend at all. Didn't touch her friend, edited herself so much to the extent, and it wasn't so much that you'd think it was edited, but it was like, realistically done, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, it just reminds me, my favourite quote is by a man called Steve Furtick, and he says, "Don't compare your behind the scenes with other people's highlight reel." And that's kind of what we do so much of. But what about when what happens to that person when they're editing their body and going, this is what I look like? What happens in real life? Like that, it's such a waste of time. And I think if we could all just show up in the world as we are, with makeup, no makeup, cold sores, all the bits and pieces, whatever it is, and just be okay with it, and focus less on appearance and appearance commentary. I think that's where we go wrong. We just spend so much time talking about how people look. Social media is a really interesting one because often people want to demonize social media, but the thing is it's kind of here to stay, like it's not going away. So, and I think it happened so quickly to us that we just everyone went along with it, and it normalized really quickly in our lives that it's a part of our lives. And I think the opportunity here is to get in nice and early with kids and empower them to use it in a way that feels good. If we're looking on social media at people's bodies for as little as 7 minutes on Instagram, we can start to feel depressed and anxious about it. If we're looking at cat videos and sunsets and landscapes or whatever, it does not have a negative impact on our mental health. So I think it's about put ourselves back in the driver's seat. Like, who are we allowing into our lives? How can we show up in the world, behind the scenes and the sparkly bits and the non-sparkly bits? Also, how can we Jamila Jamil says this in the Embrace Kids film about social media and people that make her feel bad. She says, edit. Oh, not directing. Sorry.
It's your episode.
We're going to take 5, everyone.
Jamila Jamil in the Embrace Kids film, she says, block, mute, delete, repeat. Like 4 really powerful words that if you think about that on social media, we get to allow in people, and if they've not been kind to us or telling us to look different, then we get to remove them from our lives too.
We actually have more power than we think we do on social media.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah, but I think you sort of, when you look at social media and the way people look at it, which is that endless scroll, it feels like you're watching free-to-air television, where it's like you have to watch what's being served up. But in truth, you actually can choose what you can actually manipulate the algorithm. You don't have to just accept it.
Totally. And we do this thing as human beings. We're hardwired to compare. Like, we can't actually change that. Comparisonitis on social media is the worst, because we see everyone living out their lives and we think it's all sparkly and amazing, and they've got a better house, husband, car, relationships with friends, they're having more fun, they're having more holidays. Like, if we're constantly looking at what everyone else is doing and comparing it to ourselves and our lives, then it kind of makes us feel a bit lousy. So the time that I spend on social media, a short time each day, whether it's I'm following Libby Trickett or Taria Pitt or, I don't know, people that are just inspiring, like, it's the best part of my day. I'm like, oh, what are they up to? They make me want to be better people. And I think that's the power that we can take back with social media. And cat videos. FYI, I hated cats until I met my now husband, because I'm a dog person and he had 2 cats. And now I'm like on cat videos all the time. But the cat doesn't like the dogs, and we have a baby gate in our house. So we have a blended family. Kids blended beautifully.
The internet.
Cats hate the dog's guts.
You probably didn't anticipate that or think that might be an issue to deal with.
No, it's a baby gate. We have to separate animals in our home. But what's most surprising is that cat videos are actually quite good for the soul.
The internet really gave cats a resurgence, didn't it? It's like really rebranded cats in a positive way. They're pretty cool, those cats. They're funny.
So I think just listening to you speak there, I've just realised so much with where my anxiety comes from with my like my own issues with body image. So if you were to, how when you go to Instagram and you just go to search and it just brings up all the things that you might like, it's so revealing. It's like what we've just said, yours is cats and inspiring Australian women. That seems to be what you have. that might be your algorithm. I think I love nothing more than when I'm with a friend and they say, oh, I'll just search for that. And I just love seeing what it's a real
insight, isn't it?
Totally.
Oh, yeah.
And I very proudly, in front of my wife, will let's search. And I'm very proud of the fact of what comes up. But when I think about it, it's actually topless men.
Yeah, wow.
Well, no, sorry, I'll be more specific. It's not. It's like sprinters. It's like runners who are training. And Instagram has worked out that I prefer to see if their tops off. There's more tops off.
Yeah. What do you think that says?
Well, I think it's the kind of sprinters. Well, this is I was going through my phone, through my photo history in preparation for today, because I was trying to think be really honest with the audience here about how am I about like my body image. Because Josh and I have talked about our sister a bit before in this regard, but I was like, no, be more and more vulnerable, be more honest about yourself. And so I was looking back, I saw a photo of me. So I have a coach and I send him videos of my training. And there was a session I did in the Gold Coast, very, very hot last summer. And it was I was just wearing a pair of shorts, that's it. And I took
You were very hot last summer? No, it was very hot. No, yeah, just to clarify.
That stays in.
And there's a photo of me finishing a session. I'm just wearing a pair of shorts. And when I saw it last night when I was preparing for I went, oh my God, look how, this is going to be the bit that I'm trying to say in a non-arrogant way, but I was like, look how I'm so fit there. But I remember seeing it last year. I remember when I was looking at it. And I remember I zoomed up on like my abs and I was like, nah, that is not fair. I've worked so hard this season. How can I not have abs like, and I was thinking of the Olympians that I follow, the sprinters with their top off. I look back at it now and go, oh my God. And it just makes me think that, I don't know if it's social media or the comparison, but I feel like we'll never, for a lot of people, it's like, I'll never be satisfied. Like if I wasn't happy with again, I feel awkward saying this, but if I wasn't happy with what I looked like last summer during the middle of the season, I'm not sure how I'm meant to get to a point where I go, I do have a picture in my head of who I'd like to look like. This guy called Karen Clements, which if you look him up, it's outrageous. But
if you try and be as honest as you can, if you actually look like him, do you think the bar would move?
I I know this is going to sound pretty contradictory. I think I'd be happy. I think
Wow.
I'd be really happy.
Wow.
I think I'd be so
It
happy.
goes against everything that you've spoken about for 15 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Josh asked me to be really honest.
That's amazing.
Sorry. No, not happy with everything in my life. Sorry.
right.
I'd
With
be
your
happy
body.
with my body.
Yes. Good
But even,
clarification.
But it's like last summer, I looked at my body and went, nah, not good enough. Look at it now and go, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you not happy with that? So it just makes you think, what am I don't exercise to look a certain way, just to be really clear.
Mm-hmm.
But when I look at photos, I am very critical.
Of yourself.
Yep.
Mm.
Yep. Not a question.
Yeah.
Just saying lots of stuff.
Good story.
Just a bit of press on Hugh from a year ago.
Yeah, but see, when you asked that question, which was
Yeah.
a great question, I'm thinking to myself, when you're having that body, would you be happy? And you think, yes. Well, my experience of that was having a body I hated, training for that bodybuilding competition, having the very stereotypical bikini body. I still found things wrong with my body. So I think, it's like the cosmetic surgery. People enhance and change and do one thing and then they do something else, and there's always a reason to find something wrong with your body. If you're looking through that lens, you'll always find something. But if we can focus on appreciation of what we've got and our body, that's actually a really powerful strategy on how we can have a better relationship with our body. And I'll give you an example of this. The reframes can be so powerful. I often joke that I have arms that, I'll be waving to somebody. I know you can't see this listening, but I'm waving. And then after I finish waving, my arms underneath, they call them tuck shop arms in Australia, I don't know. They're still waving, right? And I used to hate my arms. And I think, oh my gosh, I felt so much shame about them. And then a little reframe is, these arms hugged my loved ones and we all hugged. And it was, did we hug? Yeah, we hugged. No, we haven't hugged yet. No. But I will hug all of you with my arms.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. But I guess the thing is that really gentle and easy reframe goes from I'm going to obsess about the wobble in my arms to, I'm really cool that I've got these arms, or my legs that are cellulite and stretch marks. They've run 2 marathons. Hopefully I'm going to run a 3rd. That's like that deep appreciation and the reframe in our thinking we can all do. And anyone who's listening, I guess that's a real easy, practical call to action is think about the body part that you give the hardest time to, or you spend focusing on, and find the reframe. It sounds so Pollyanna, but it really does. Like, find the love for it, or find the reason to be grateful for it.
I had this, thanks to your film, I did this last night for the first time, and because I would traditionally think I'm sort of a bit stocky and wish I wasn't sort of, I won't go into what I wish I was, but I just consider myself a bit stocky. But then last night I thought, well, this body is quite strong, and I put my son on my what was that?
I've just got so many examples of how strong you are
Oh, okay.
that are so funny. And also point out how weak I am, but keep going.
Okay. I was wondering why.
I know, I was like, is he shaming you?
Yeah. It's a very strange way to place the line. You've been off-brand a few times.
You are killing the brand, Hugh.
I had very funny images in my head of you lifting very heavy stuff and me next to you pretending I'm contributing, but I'm really not.
I remember those times.
Yeah, it sounded more like a bullshit.
Yeah. No, but I was thinking about how lifting my son up on my shoulders and throwing him around is one of my favourite things to do, and I can do that, and my body lets me do that, and that's the best thing ever. And it was the first. I feel like it's the first positive thing I've said about my body in 26 years, and it was a real. Yeah, it was a simple thing, and it was so obvious, and it's there. I didn't have to search that hard for it, but I just needed the prompt or the example of someone else doing it, I think.
That's so cool. That makes me so happy. That's like teary KPI moment for me.
Tears KPI.
Well, it's not often, is that just feels really lovely. And you know what I'm most excited about for you is that if that's your first thought in 26 years, I wonder what your second thought and your third thought's going to be.
Yeah.
And like a muscle that you grow at the gym, that's that mental muscle. Just keep adding to that list. Keep adding to the list. And how old are your boys?
1 and 3.5.
Yeah. So
not two at all.
you have a lot of
Not two. There's two of them. Yeah.
you've got a lot of good reasons to get it right, so you can role model that behaviour for them.
Yeah, well, my wife has been on this from the start, basically since they've been born, as far as we had scales in the house, and she was like, I don't want you getting on scales in front of them. And she knows the internal dialogue I've had, and she is like, has sort of been reminding me to not repeat the behaviours, but it's her intention is 100% correct. But when you've been doing it for so long, it's hard to find the bridge to get there, because I think it's bathed in sort of shame and self-loathing. It's kind of hard to see the opposite. Whereas that reframe to me was so powerful, because as you said, the second thought might allow me to start being more active, which would be wonderful. Because I've had people, like I had a psychologist say, like, why don't you just, like, rather than seeing exercise as like a destination that you have to get to and like a chore or like an activity that's going to get you an outcome, we want to get to a point where you're just enjoying the movement, enjoying moving. But I didn't, that sounds wonderful, but I was like, how the hell do you get there? Whereas this is it's a beautiful, life-enriching view rather than narrowing. Yeah. And
I love that about exercise. It's actually something I'm really curious to unpack with lots of Australians, because we have this thing like, oh, we have to exercise. Like, oh my gosh, it's the best part of my day is moving my body. You know, if it's in nature or if it's a swim or walking the dog or dancing in the lounge room, whatever it is. And I think there's these rules that say, oh, we've got to go to the gym, it's got to feel hard, and we've got to sweat, and it's got to have these outcomes that our watches tell us, what calories we've burned, and it's like, that kind of feels really disempowering to me. So there are days where I still lift heavy weights, but there's days where sometimes I'm just like, oh, get me in nature. But every day it's my choice. How am I going to move my body? It doesn't feel like something that's happening to me. It doesn't feel like exercise is a bad thing. I think we have a dysfunctional relationship with exercise.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
It was a huge shift for me. Not that I'm would classify myself as a big exerciser, but recently I have exercised a lot more than I traditionally did, because I understood, from whether it be speaking on this podcast or reading about things, I understood for the first time that exercising and moving doesn't have to lead to you looking better. It actually leads to you feeling better. And when I understood that and then experienced it, exercise became exciting, because it became the thing that I knew it would make me feel better if I would do it. So now, like particularly this week, I've like every morning I got like a Peloton bike, and so every morning I'm doing a workout, but it's 10, 20 minutes. And in my mind, the goal isn't to look better. Like that isn't and so because that isn't the goal, I don't feel the need to go really, really hard because if I know I have to go really hard, I probably won't do it, because it's like scary and annoying, and that's really hard work, and I'll just avoid it altogether. But knowing just doing a little bit, get your heart rate up, and that's it, and then I feel better afterwards. The motivation of that has completely changed my relationship with exercise and moving.
Isn't it freeing?
Yep. It's the best.
Yeah. I love that.
I'm just quoting your film back to you, but Amanda de Cadenet, I think she was referring more to food at the time, about how when she eats, she knows she has to, if she wanted to get to the cover model body, she would be miserable because of the food that was going into her body. And her friend saying that people don't tune into your show to see what you look like. They tune in to hear what you say and listen to your brilliant brain, paraphrasing. I found that to be it's similar to what you were saying then, but it's such a important reframe again, that it's all about, for me, the thing that sticks is that if I can get my brain in the best shape I can every day, then I'll be a better dad, I'll be better at my job, I'll be a better partner to my wife, and I'll be able to get more joy out of life and get more emotional engagement in life. And that exercise and eating healthy, that's a good goal, rather than just looking good, which is such a limiting goal.
Isn't it?
And also, like, depending on our relationship with looking good, it often feels like an impossible task.
Yeah.
So it's like a long time ago, I sort of accepted the fact that I'll never have the incredible six-pack, big pecs kind of thing. I know logically I could get it if I worked hard enough and did all the right things that you're supposed to do. But I don't want to do that. So it's like I just know I won't do it, and I just know I won't have it. And so often that was like always the thing going like, well, what's the point in exercising or doing weights, because you're never going to look like that anyway. So what's the point? And then when I learned that actually, no, I think I heard Jerry Seinfeld talking about it actually, and he was on, I think he was on the Tim Ferriss podcast, and he talked about he's been doing weights for the longest time, and weights is the thing that helps him be healthy. And you don't think of Jerry Seinfeld isn't in the Schwarzenegger league. Like, it's not like he's not doing weights and getting this huge muscly body, but it doesn't matter because it makes him feel good. And that's the point. It's not how you look, it's how you feel.
And I've always believed for the longest time too, just the balance of how we look versus how we feel. We've just put so much focus on the appearance that we've kind of lost our way. And if we could just, balance those scales a little bit more, I think a lot of us will be happier and healthier. We also know when we're talking about moving our bodies that people who appreciate their bodies and have a better body image are more likely to move them, eat fruit and vegetables. Like, there's a whole range of reasons why we want to get this relationship with our body right. And I think that's a whole new conversation to have in Australia, because we had Life Be In It, we had Norm, and we've been shamed about our bodies. And remember Norm?
Of course, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, even just a statistic that's come out that eating disorders have doubled in 5 to 12-year-olds since 2019. Everyone was like, oh, it's the pandemic, and what happened since. It's like, no, it's not. It's 2 decades of really unhelpful messaging that we all bought into that made us feel bad and disempowered in our bodies. And I think this is the real opportunity that we have now. Like, we have the science that shows us what to do, and let that be the lead, and let's have more conversations, and let's push back on the shame and the stigma. And all the appearance commentary and weight loss and weight gain and diets. I mean, diet, 4-letter word, first 3 letters spelled die. I mean, if that's not a sign, I don't know what else is. But, I think we're in a really interesting moment in time. And I think for me, Australian of the Year has given me the opportunity to elevate this as a really serious national conversation. And it's not #LoveYourBody, #grateful. It's so much more. And we've got 28,000 days to live. And so many of us have wasted those days hating our bodies. So we can make the choice to embrace right here and right now. You already did it last night.
Yeah, it was great. Felt good. And it didn't have to be it was a small shift, but feels like the small shift that I can build upon. And the whole thing feels, I think the word, because I had someone using this the other day and I haven't checked if this is the right way to use it. No, not irritative. That would be annoying. Anyway, it builds on itself.
I love that you're doing that live. This is the sort of thing that I'm like, is that the right word? Am I going to say it the right way? I won't say it. You're like, I'm going to have a go.
We interviewed someone the other day that kept using it. I'm like, that's a great word. I should use that. And then I never looked it up to check if it what.
I want to know what it is.
Yeah, but it feels like it can build on itself. So
totally, rather
than the end goal that seems so insurmountable, it feels like it'll all just build little pieces. And all I had to do was say, well, what I used to call stocky body that looked a bit wide in T-shirts and I actually usually would wear, I often on this show, because of being filmed, I'll often wear something, if anyone looks back through, it'll be a T-shirt with something else over it, because I don't like the way a T-shirt, but I thought today I'm just going to wear a T-shirt because I thought this is
really
a
cool.
good way.
It is cool.
To go for it, which is, I know it sounds like a crazy thing that just wearing a T-shirt.
I wish so much
But
I'd
it's
gone to
not.
the next level and just like, I'm not wearing a top.
Totally. Me too. That's where we can head. Next time I circle back, it's like we're all sitting here with no clothes on.
Josh, where have you got the oil?
I'm glad that I'm really glad that we're hearing in real time the difference that film has made. And I think I just want to make note that we had academics, Dr. Zali Jaeger from Victoria University, Associate Professor Ivanka Pritchard from Flinders University. They watched the Embrace film in a cinema full of women and watched the impact that it had on them. And then they decided to do a global study. So they reached out to me, and so like I'm a high school dropout. So when academics come to you and they're like talking science, you're like, yeah, let's talk science.
They probably used the word irritative.
They probably did, and they probably used it in context better than you did. So they did this study, and it was published in a medical journal just a couple of years ago, and that was pretty wild. I mean, anecdotally, and it's my film, so of course I'm like this is a great film. But now we had science that said women who watched this film had a high appreciation of their body by a lot after watching it.
Wow.
And all these other incredible, big academic paper. So we were really proud of that. But then the number one piece of feedback was, I wish I had seen this film when I was younger. And so we thought, right, we're always sort of trying to solve problems. Let's focus on prevention. And so that's why we made Embrace Kids. So we took the same academic team and the creative team to make Embrace Kids. And I have to say it was probably one of the hardest career moves ever because we all played really well together, but we just all come at it from very different angles. And I remember one day in the office, Zali was sort of talking about we can't show bodies. I'm like, but it's a movie about body image, we need to see the bodies. And we knew that it would do more damage to kids to see the stereotypical body. And I remember this one day and I was like, I got a bit teary, which rarely happens. I was so frustrated. I'm like, I don't know how to direct this film and make people feel feels without showing bodies. And then in the middle of that night, I woke up, I'm like, dogs' bodies. We'll show dogs' bodies because we never ask a sausage dog to look like, I don't know, the bulldog or the schnauzer to look like them. So in the film, which I really encourage if you're listening and, well, you know what, everyone needs to see this film because we're all around kids. You'll see a minute of dogs on a beach in the film, which did try and take our souls this particular day of filming because we had 20 dogs, 20 dog wranglers, doggy parents. I doubled the amount of crew on this day. And I'm like, this is how it's going to roll. This is the plan. And I swear the dogs got to the beach. I'm like, hey, I haven't seen you here before. And they all just ran in all the different directions. And the director of photography who filmed Embrace with me, the coolest, calmest character ever. I love working with him. I went up to him halfway through the shoot. I'm like, how's your day? And he goes, it's the worst day of my life. It was just, so you'll see the minute of dogs. But I wanted to mention the dogs because I kind of think we never judge them. We never demand that they should look like another, but we do that so quickly with human beings and bodies. We should look this way or you should look that way. But we're also unique and so different and how boring the world would be if we all look the same. That's the beauty.
That's, because after I haven't watched Embrace Kids, but after I watched Embrace, my first thought was surely this is in every school. How do we get this in? Every kid needs to see this. But I didn't consider that the problem of showing kids the stereotypical good bodies. So is that the barrier why you can't put the
it just made more sense to make a different type of film. So, older kids 15 plus could watch Embrace, but really it's that 8 to 12-year-olds.
Of course,
And, not just body image, but all the big issues that they're coming across. We had Chloe Hayden in the film and Jamila Jamil and Amy Shepherd and Celeste Barber, and there's some, real incredible people sharing their stories and being really vulnerable. I've talked about KPIs 3 times today. I think I need someone to pat me on the back and say, it's okay, keep going. It's just it's a lot at the moment.
Have you got a KPI for saying KPI?
No.
You should, because you're smashing it.
It's embarrassing. But the other KPI was when I've watched kids in cinemas watch the Embrace Kids film, is that how often do they go to the toilet and how much rustling of papers do I hear? And I don't hear any of it. They just sit there. And what's really cool is working on the Embrace Kids film with the same academic team from the first film is that everything in it is safe and effective and based on science, but they're being entertained. They don't know they're being educated to. And it's just film is such a powerful way to convey stories and get messages into hearts and minds. And my 16-year-old, when I showed him a cut of the film and I asked him, what did you think? His response was, it's better than I thought it was going to be. I was like, thank you for bestowing a 5-star review on your mother. But I think I just mentioned Embrace Kids film because I think it's a really important conversation to have, that there is a resource out there that actually has the power to change the direction of where kids might be going or just might set them up for life. So we avoid these kind of 26-year hiatuses between feeling good about our bodies.
So that
Yeah.
Embrace Kids is appropriate for kids to watch 8 and above. Is that?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay,
totally. It's
great.
got a G rating.
G rating. Great. Okay, cool.
I need to watch it because I have, with the two boys, this is such a cop-out, but I've been saying in my mind, I'd love to have a daughter, but thank God I don't have to have a discussion with my daughter because I have no idea what to say about this stuff. And I have no idea how I would fight against the avalanche of shit that she would have to deal with, which is a cop-out because my sons will have to deal with it too. And I've got two beautiful nieces and they'll have female friends. And so it's an issue that affects everyone, but I feel kind of ashamed that I have no idea how I'm going to have those conversations yet. But yeah, any tips?
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot. I mean,
yeah, I'm sure there
do
are.
you know what? There's, it's as big a problem as it is for our daughters as it is for our sons. I mean, I was just reading some research and some papers around rowing, and they've stopped weighing girls, but they're still weighing the boys.
Yeah.
So, and there's just Dr. Zali Jaeger was on a TV show the other day, and I was watching her, and it showed a bunch of images of men and their six packs and their bodies and their tops off, and then we went back to the TV host who was fanning herself and was like, oh, I might need to take a break after that. And I'm just really curious about all the ways that we're continuing to objectify men, and it seems okay, but we've stopped over. Like, we need to stop it all for everybody.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I used to be very thinking about daughters, and then it was like sons, and I'm like, oh, this is just for humanity.
Yeah.
And lucky all of our resources are universal, so we can use them across for all.
Yeah, the messaging's the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful.
What do you think of the term dad bods or dad bod? Because you could go either way with it, as in, why is it like it's set up as a thing that, like, yeah, they've just had a kid, so of course they've put on some weight. Yeah, we don't afford women the same grace as far as like, but it should be more the case of like they've just had a kid. Like, gosh, of course their body's going to have changed. But then I also wonder, honestly, I don't think too many men would sit there going, oh, I'm really enjoying my dad bod now. This is good. I think they are uncomfortable with it. Where it should be just a general thing of like, when you have a child, you don't get any sleep. You don't have time to move as much as you used to. Your priorities change, and so your body will change. How do you feel about that term in general? As soon as you hear dad bod, but before I put my spin on it, poorly articulated, but how do you feel about the term dad bod?
I just think any labelling of bodies is unhelpful in general. So, yeah. I mean, the context that I've heard dad bod being used is often with men, and it's a bit of a joke, and dad bod, but it's still, I see beyond that joke. You know, I still think there's that trauma that we spoke about earlier on, that there's feelings that sit underneath that, and that confidence and that joking is actually perhaps not really authentic or real.
Yeah, it's like that thing of getting in to make the joke about yourself before someone else does. It's a defense mechanism.
Totally.
I think you're right. It's like, of course, your physique will change after something as big as that happens to you, but you're so self-conscious of it that you need to, it's kind of like you make a joke about it.
But I think your point is the pertinent one, that it's just like any kind of labelling's bad. Like,
It's sort of like, because in an ideal, tell me if I could be wrong here, but in an ideal world, we never talk about our bodies. Like, in an ideal world, it's just never brought up because it's just, like you said, the least interesting thing. It doesn't matter. But before that happens, we do have to have the conversation about bodies, which is exactly what you're doing. So it's almost like we need to talk about it to talk about the fact that we don't talk about it. Like, we need to get to a point where it's like, this is not even a discussion. Don't even bring it up. Just avoid talking about it altogether, unless it's obviously the word you're spreading. But that just seems like it'd be such an idealistic, not even idealistic, such an exciting thing to get to, where it's like it doesn't even come up in conversation. No one even cares.
No.
Is that something you think we can get to?
I do. Yeah, I do. Because it feels good when we don't. It feels good to meet somebody and not feel like your appearance has been judged, and that you just have that exchange of energy and connection that has nothing to do with any of it. Like that, there's something really just freeing about that. And also it's almost like a fast track to human connection is when you don't, it's hard to put into words, but yes is the answer to that. We absolutely have to get there. And I think we can, because I think the dialogues about our bodies and even the vulnerability that you've shared today, like 26 years, I still can't believe that's such a long time to harbour not a lot of self-love, right?
On that front anyway.
On that particular front. I think there's so much opportunity ahead. The next film's Embrace Men, and even just sitting here, I'm excited to hear and share some of your vulnerabilities and stories, because I almost feel like that finishing off the trilogy of Embrace films. I mean, I know it's not like, was it Hobbits or something? It's like
Lord of the Rings.
Back to the Future.
But for me, it does. It feels like, oh my gosh, if I could just get to this last film and get it out there. It feels like it could be the last piece of the puzzle where we can all unite over this and then walk forward together, and it's not us versus them.
At least you don't have to make the Embrace Pets film.
I've already done that.
I do have a book coming out called Chico the Schnauzer next year. I've made my Schnauzer into a book. That sounds odd.
Wow. Did you ask consent of the Schnauzer? Bad news. You're going to be a book now.
Wow. I have nothing to add to that.
Embrace Men, that is really exciting. I think that will be surprisingly, maybe not to you, but I think to people surprisingly more impactful than they think.
And needed. Surprisingly needed.
Yeah.
There are I have so many questions for you, which is good because we're on a podcast with you. This is a good
I
time.
wish there was a way. There's so many questions I want to ask you publicly. How
Preferably
can we?
recorded if we can.
What do you think about
They're very non sequitur, but I'm enjoying it.
So I'm so obsessed, I think, in a really good way with my health and my well-being. Because it's not about, for me, it's not about the way I look. It's 100% about the way I feel. And a big part of that is the food that I'm putting into my body. That's become a really big focus for me. But it's hard to, the food that makes me feel good is food that also will be best for what people would typically think is like looking fit and looking really healthy. I think part of having I think part of this, like, you know, embracing the body that you have is just, I'm going to eat what I want when I feel like it. But also for our physical health, there is a responsibility to eat whole food, non-processed, less sugar, all that kind of stuff. Is there not a contradiction? Is there like a complex message in there somewhere? Is it hard to get the balance right for a lot of people? For somebody who's got a lot of questions to ask, I need to get better at asking.
Well, I mean, what we know is that people who feel good about their bodies are more likely to eat fruit and vegetables, and they're more likely to move their body, and women are more likely to get cervical screenings and breast checks, and there's a whole long list of why you would want people to feel good about their bodies, because they make good choices. I mean, it's the conversation that comes up, you know, whenever I dip in my toes into the media world, where people want to have this conversation about health, and they're so scared that embracing your body means eating 20 donuts on the couch. I've done that. It's only after a breakup. I can highly recommend it, but it's not, you know, I think we just need to empower people that food's not good or bad. Food is food. We don't want to demonize food. We don't want to label food either. But we want everyone to know, especially our young people, that the way we fuel our body is really important. And if you want to go out and have the adventures and do the things, then it's what you put in your mouth that's going to get you to do it. So I don't think it needs to be that complicated, to be honest. My relationship with my body is obviously incredibly complicated, as everyone's is, as we've spent a while talking about. But I went to the doctor, got a blood test, found out I had high cholesterol. So I thought,
the first step was, okay, I think we need to lose some weight to try and get the cholesterol down. And I managed to do that. And it was the first time that I had managed to lose weight. And I think it was because it was linked to this is a serious health thing now. Went back and got the test and my cholesterol hadn't changed at all. It had gone up actually.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And the doctor did say it could be genetic. So if it's genetic, it's just something we're going to have to monitor, and you might have to go on medication and stuff at some point. But it was an interesting thing of like I got to what would be considered a better body because I'd lost a bit of weight, and the reason for doing it hadn't changed at all. And then I was in this sort of internal thing of like, oh, why did I lose the weight? And had this sort of internal struggle, and I decided to continue with the lifestyle that I had because I felt a bit healthier, felt happier, felt a bit more engaged, because I think I'd felt good because I'd taken a sustainable action that I felt was being healthier, but I also was worried that I was starting to do it because of appearance, and it was starting to get quite complicated in there. I don't really know why I'm bringing this up because I'm not sure there's a question there, but I don't know. I'm jumbling this up. I'm sorry, guys.
No, that's all right.
I still don't. I was worried. I was probably not going to bring this up today, and we might even cut all that out because I really don't. I'm kind of confused as to what's my real reason for losing that weight. And I know the exact number in my mind. Like I know the number I went to. I actually jumped on the scales this morning. I feel like it's a bad thing to admit I did. Because I wanted to see if I was still there, because I still have such a complicated relationship with it.
But I do that. I still do the scales because in my mind I associate being in a, I have a number in my mind. It's like if I'm between this number and that number, I can relax. But if I go above a certain number, I need to reconsider something. Like I'm obviously not doing something right. But I think that's quite common though, to have a number, and I don't know if that's necessarily a good or a bad thing. I mean, ideally I never get on scales again, because you can trick yourself into thinking that there was a time, like Hugh, you were saying like, last year you thought, you look at a photo and you thought that you needed to do work a year ago, and then you look at it now and it's like, oh, actually I had nothing to worry about. Whereas I'm sure there are times in my life where I was like, oh good, I'm at that number, and now I have like a new number, which has like probably gone down a little bit because it's that always wanting more thing, and the number does kind of keep dropping.
The number has dropped for me for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I never thought I'd get to this number, and now this number is
not good enough.
About 5 above what I want the new number to be.
Yeah.
It's it happens quickly. Basically, the moment you reach that number. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. So for me and the scales, it's a really slippery slope and a quick descent into having a bad day. That's what it was for me. So I would stand on the scales every day, and it would kind of almost be on reflection, looking back, am I good or am I bad moment? What will that number dictate what I do today, how I feel today, what I eat today, what I obsess over today? So for me, weighing myself is a hard no. It just made me feel really bad and lousy.
That's such a good point about like the number then represents where you're at as a person almost. Because even just going back to the Embrace doco and those interviews you're doing with just everyday people, women just talking about how they see themselves and how they see their body. The thing that I found really heartbreaking was like, they would say that they think that their body is disgusting, or they would say those sorts of words. But a few of them said they feel disgusting. Like it's not that they think they look disgusting. It's just they feel like that as a person. So it's like that transcends how you look or your weight or anything like that. It's like it's sort of like it's taken over your entire opinion of yourself and how you feel. And I think that's so true about the number. It's like when you have a bad number day, as I as someone who weighs themselves, it's like you have a bad number day and you're like, oh. All right, I'm not doing well.
Yeah.
And you judge yourself.
And I think it's also about changing the metrics. So for me, it was the scales at one time. Now it's about how do I feel, not just physically, but mentally, and how present do I feel, and how much energy do I have, and there are other metrics to sort of, if we want to put some kind of analysis on how we're feeling. And for me, far better than, that little box that wields so much power.
God, there should be a brain scale. You can just place your brain on a scale and it tells you if it's good or bad. It's like, oh, it's a bad brain day. Oh, okay, I should do some good things for myself to make myself feel better.
Hey, I tell you what's really alarming and something that's going to be, the big battle for us next is they're still weighing some kids in some schools in Australia.
What?
It's still happening. I know.
For what reason? Health?
For health reasons. So we're going to start a campaign really soon to quickly fast track, the ending of that as something that activity just doesn't have its place.
The what would then happen within the class? Oh my God! Oh my God! What did you get? What did you weigh?
Yeah.
Oh God, that's horrible.
I mean, I was kind of a bit put off when I was weighed at the doctor's and then put on the BMI rating thing, and then suddenly I'm in this label of obese, and I was like, I just felt so shit about myself so quickly. And I'm like, this just does not take into account so many different things about this is a number, this is my weight, my height and my age, and that's it. 3 numbers calculate. I think that's how it's done. So 3 numbers that calculate so much about my self-worth. It's like, this just doesn't seem a very smart way to do it.
Do they say that word, obese?
Yeah. You get put in a category because my BMI was over a certain number, so I'm in an obese range. That was last year.
That's madness.
Yeah. And I'm like, but I'm quite as we've discussed, quite strong. So my number is different to someone else's number who's a little bit different muscle mass and all this stuff. There's so much that goes into it. And even then, as you said, the whole point is to not care about the number. But even the way we're getting to the number seems so flawed and so reductive and kind of, pretty
But
bad.
also it's like Taryn, you were saying, it's like that's a label that is, I mean, I can see why they have to name it something, then if they're a doctor and they have to, but to pass that label on, because good or bad, like whether it's like the best BMI or the worst, it's going to have a negative impact in some way, or on certain people it could have a negative impact. So it's like, what's actually the point of letting you know in those terms?
And the science tells us that if you are categorized in the range of being overweight or obese, that you're more likely to put on weight. So because shame
surprise me.
and
No,
stigma
it
doesn't make us want to go, I'm going to look after my body. Thanks for that piece of information. I feel really good about it now.
Yeah.
It makes people feel terrible. And this is this whole conversation we need to have in this country. I think there's a disproportionate care in other people's health. I think everyone needs to just mind their own business about their own health, the way that people in larger bodies are treated. But this BMI, it just needs to be abolished.
Yeah, you're so right about the labelling thing and putting on weight, because I immediately thought, well, I don't know what I can do about it. I don't think I can do anything about this. This is who I am now. Like I can't, and it was so, not that there's anything wrong with being any size at all, but just that I don't feel empowered to do anything to be more active or to be more healthy at all.
I just have the picture of you walking down the street near your house with 2 of my kids on your shoulders and your son on your head. The joy that it brought them in that moment.
It made it all the way down the street.
I can just carry one of them. You had 3 of them.
It was so much fun. I could barely walk for a couple of days, but it was a lot of fun to do.
You could do it. And then,
and that's good stuff.
You're very bloody strong.
Oh, thanks. That's a nice digression.
Do you run, Josh?
Not really, no. I did for a little bit during COVID, but not really anymore.
Obsessively.
Right. Just like the example here of different abilities and bodies, and kind of that's the loveliness that, when there's something to lift heavy, you're there to get it up the stairs, and if you need to run away from someone fast, that's the body to have to get it.
But I'm on my own.
That's right.
It's sort of, you mentioned the dogs thing before, and it made me think of a Bluey episode where Bingo's being teased at school for being a bit stocky or something. And what's the mum's name again? Chili. Chili says to her, "You're a blue heeler. We're a little bit stocky, but we're tough." and there's this celebration how tough she is. And the way I just love the way that was framed of like, yeah, that's what you are, but that's not a bad thing. You're a tough little, it was nice. Anyway.
Sorry.
No, go.
Who's your enemy? It's fine. No, it's fine. No.
I know.
As in, do you know what? As in
Norm from Life Be Unit.
Okay.
No, I'm joking.
with what you're trying to, the extraordinary work you're trying to do. There must be one thing where you're like, oh, for fuck's sake, you are making my work so difficult. I'm not asking for a name. It could be. It's probably more a thing or a organisation or a fad or a.
Don't feel the need to mention the company. I'm sure there's many of them, but
no, mention them, I reckon.
I don't know. I don't really focus too much on the enemy. I do have this kind of thought process in my head about getting into the lion's den as often as I can. For example, we're talking to Meta because social media, we could be doing things better. So let's have the conversation. So I don't necessarily think anyone's the enemy. I think there's industries, beauty, diet, cosmetic industries, $1 trillion industries. They're not all bad though. Yeah, it's a tricky one. I actually spend very little time thinking about that side of things. It's more just for me the opportunity to get more people talking about the good stuff and why we want it to embrace. And it's like brands and organisations will catch up because if you cast your minds back to 10, 15 years ago, if we opened up magazines or what we saw reflected back on billboards actually really wasn't a representation of what we see when we walk down the street. We're seeing so much more of that now. So what I would like to do, and I think this is why I'm struggling to answer this question, is I hate putting the power in the hands of the enemy. I'd rather for each and every one of us to have that sense of agency to change it for ourselves, and whoever those enemies are will eventually catch up.
Well, probably it probably took Boost Juice to show that there was margins in smoothies for other businesses to go like, oh yeah, we'll do health drinks. That sounds great. So then all of a sudden it's like, because I think the enemy often, I reckon, it's like people, like if you go and speak to Meta or any social media person, there's no doubt the people working there are probably pretty good people and they want the best. Like they don't want to do bad things, but often those sorts of companies, there's like trapped in this business model that they can't, it's so hard for them to make change because the shareholders rely on certain money to come in and the only way they can get that money is by doing a certain thing, which is often or can be very unhelpful to humanity. But the individuals who want change, it's actually very hard for them to make the change because it is they'll either lose their job if they lose money and they don't want to do that. So it's like I think that's really it's such a tough thing that especially with social media, where it's like they've gotten themselves into this situation where they're making a lot of money, or like search engines or whatever, they're making a lot of money from a certain way of doing things, and even though it's very harmful, it's not necessarily individuals who are running it. It's not their fault. Like they're not bad people, I don't think.
Yeah, totally. It just reminds me of a time in LA, Lorna Jane Clarkson came to see the Embrace
Is
film.
Lorna Jane the fitness wear?
Exactly.
Yeah.
3 horizontal rectangles is their logo.
Great.
Not that
Like Adidas.
Yeah.
more spread out.
Oh, yeah.
But she came and saw the film, and up until that time, she was only offering a sort of a reduced number of clothing sizes within her brand. She saw Embrace, and then she came back to Australia and increased the range, so more people in larger bodies could use her activewear.
Brilliant.
Brilliant, yes, but I copped a whole ton of shit from people because I had a photograph with Lorna and she wasn't giving us what we wanted, and it was exclusive size ranges and it wasn't okay. And I just think there's a whole piece of the puzzle here that we've got to be a little bit more forgiving as well. And I like that you say, we don't have to there's good people working in these organisations, and it's about getting to them and hoping we can find some common ground just to do a little bit better. I don't think it's ever going to be perfect, but if we could just, in all the different areas, just make it a little bit better and a little less damaging, but really focus on our sense of agency in the world. Because the world can tell us all the things, but it's like for kids, if we can armour them up to go out into the world, and it like bounces right off them. Like it doesn't get in those unhelpful messages.
I love the way you're framing it in the positive steps that we can individually take to arm ourselves in. And if the messages don't get in, then the money will move it to a way that the message does get in, which would be a more healthy body image. But it's a wonderful flip, because before hearing you say that, slightly negatively, I must say, would think, God, there's so much money and such a huge industry in making people feel like shit about their bodies. But the idea that we could all kind of collectively say in our own way, no, I'm not going to, I don't want to see that. I want to respect my body and all our bodies, and then they'll have to move. The money will have to move in a different direction. Yeah,
Thank you for articulating that in the way I wanted to. That's right. The money will move to where we decide the money goes as consumers.
What's the best thing you've ever done?
Hugh's 15-year-old self's come to interview today. What's the coolest film you've ever seen?
Favourite colour?
Oh my gosh, you need to give me some boundary. The best thing I've ever done.
On this,
with Rick Astley at Good Morning America.
Wow.
Cool.
So that's the first thing that came to mind.
That's pretty good.
Is that right?
Well,
Except wait for it. I got the words wrong. I'm never going to give you up, never going to let it, never going to turn around. I think that's the wrong words.
Gonna turn you down.
And I don't know.
Okay.
But he acknowledged in the video, he's like, she's got it now. And I was like, oh, I can't believe. That was like my moment, and I buggered it up. Is that what you wanted from that?
I was going to say, if you wanted bands, I was going to say on your professional journey or on this movement that you have started. And that's a pretty cool answer.
Yeah, I probably should have thought of a better grown-up answer.
No, but I love the instinct. It's good. Yeah.
Always to go straight to Rick Astley.
Yeah.
Of course.
I think you've changed millions of lives. Rick Astley. Wow.
Amazing.
I want another one of your questions now. These are keeping me on my toes.
Well, I was going to say, ask a kid-like question, get a kid-like answer, I guess.
Okay, that's right.
Exactly.
I mean, just from changing, I feel like you have a vision for the world. I always think, I don't know why, I always think quite locally. I find it hard to, I guess, I went and did a speaking thing around the US, and I couldn't believe how much my stuff didn't work there. It was just, because I do a very, I hope it comes across as quite a humble, self-deprecating type thing. And I was like 15 minutes in at this, I was speaking to a group of a gridiron or US football team, and 15 minutes in, this guy stood up and goes, "Come on, man, you can do it. Believe in yourself." So anyway, I've gone on a big tangent here, but what's your vision for, like what would you love to see in, I say Australia, but you're probably thinking the world, but what would you like to see for people? I know it probably sounds like an obvious answer, but I'm just interested in the vision that you have in your mind of what you're working towards.
Well, this year it's really clear. It's 1 in 4 Australian children, so 1 million children we want to reach with the message of embrace. And for everyone, we just want people to make a better choice about the relationship that they have with their body, and to know that it's a choice, and to recognise that perhaps the relationship they've had it hasn't served them well, hasn't made them feel good, hasn't made them healthier and happier and all those things. And maybe there's a different way. There's an alternate way. I'm obsessed with this 28,000 days on the planet, because it's kind of what we get if we're really lucky. And I would just like people at any age, at any stage, just to go, okay, I'm done with that, and I'm going to try this. And it's pretty wild. I've lived both sides of the coin of hating my body and now embracing it. And it's hard to put into words. It's just like a real gift in life to be at peace with your body.
How long do you think you hated your body for?
I think it came home after I had my kids, but I think I even remember back in school kind of dieting or wanting her body or wanting a different body. So I think it was always there. But it sort of just really ramped up, after I had my kids.
Well, I think you're a picture of hope for everyone, the fact that you can go from that to, well, not only deciding you love your body, but to then trying to inspire the entire world to do the same. You're extraordinary. You're a wonderful choice for Australian of the Year, first of all. So,
Gotcha.
Your work is so unbelievably important, and we are very lucky. When I say we, I mean the world is very lucky to have you doing the work that you're doing. So thank you for joining us today.
Thanks,
Gosh, I
Taryn.
feel really good and energized. I want to stay here longer. Thank you.
Let's keep going.
Well, yeah.
Fingers crossed for back-to-back Australians of the Year. I'd love to see you get it again. Has anyone ever done it back-to-back? And again, Taryn.
Oh my gosh, that's the best. Oh, it's probably one of the funniest things I've ever. Back to
Just
back.
snuck it in.
When I'm on the red carpet next year and they're like, what are you hoping for tonight? And I'll just say, well, back to back.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Another win.
I feel like I've done some pretty.
Another win.
I feel like I've done even better work this year, so it would make sense.
It would make sense, yeah.
Oh, that's great.
Thank you, Taryn.
The Imperfects is hosted and produced by Hugh Van Cuylenberg, Ryan Shelton and Josh Van Cuylenberg. Our executive producer is Bridget Northeast. This episode is filmed by Andy Poole and edited by George Martin. The Imperfects is not a licensed mental health service and is not a substitute for professional mental health advice, treatment or assessment. The advice given in this episode is general in nature, but if you're struggling, please see a healthcare professional or call Lifeline on 131114.